President Biden is ordering U.S. intelligence officials to, quote, redouble their efforts to investigate the origins of COVID-19. This comes after a new report sparked new questions about whether the virus could have originated in a Wuhan, China lab accident. Well, now the U.S. intelligence community has 90 days to determine if that is true, if the virus, or rather, if the virus came from an animal. So for more on this, let's bring in Nancy Cordes. Nancy, you were at the White House. What does this investigation entail?
Well, to be honest, it's really a continuation of the work that the intelligence community has already been doing. It's just that the president is saying he wants them to redouble their efforts and get back to him with a report in 90 days about where they stand on this central question of where the coronavirus originated. In his statement, he was sort of startlingly candid about where the intelligence community stands right now. This is the kind of detail we don't typically get on the record. The president saying there are a couple of elements of the intelligence community or agencies within the intelligence community who are leaning towards this theory that the virus originated in nature, as it typically does, and was passed from animals to humans. And then there's another element of the intelligence community or another agency that believes or is at least leaning towards this lab accident theory, the notion that the COVID virus somehow originated, not because it was created in this Wuhan virology lab in China, but perhaps was being studied in the lab and somehow got out, either intentionally or more likely unintentionally. But he also said that many members of the intelligence community still don't feel that there is enough information to decide either way on either of these two options, and that even the agencies that are leaning one way or the other don't have a high degree of confidence at this point in either theory. And so he says we got to do more work. We've got to get information from China. We've got to get that data. The problem is that neither he nor White House officials have told us how they plan to get that information. So far, China has completely rejected the lab accident theory. They say it is ridiculous. They have not handed over any information, and we don't know what, if anything, the president will or can do to compel China to hand over that data within the next 90 days or even after it.
You see, that's the thing about it. The Biden administration has, spent months sort of attempting to minimize the possibility of a lab accident theory. They're not the only ones. We've spoken to many experts about that over the last year, and most of them were sort of leaning away from that. The WHO, after investigating, really couldn't give us a definitive answer. I'm wondering why the administration is looking into this now. Does the timing tell us anything?
The timing does tell us something, and it's because the Wall Street Journal reported that this internal intelligence community report that was actually put together months ago had revealed that there were 3 researchers at this Wuhan virology lab who got so sick back in November 2019 that they had to be hospitalized. That was a full month before any cases were actually officially recorded in Wuhan. It kind of lent credibility to this lab accident theory, which had always been just that, kind of a fringe theory. There was no strong evidence, at least no evidence that was known publicly, that would really lend credence to a theory like that, especially when we know that it's so much more common for these viruses to sort of develop in animals and get passed to humans. That's just how it always happens. And so it really kind of lurked out there in the fringes. It was talked about a lot by Trump administration officials for months, in all fairness, but without any real evidence to back it up or any evidence that they were willing to share publicly, it just kind of lingered there as something that was talked about, but without any true evidence to back it up. And now that the Wall Street Journal and other outlets have confirmed that actually there may be some evidence, it has made it into the mainstream. And so you see the Biden White House now pivoting publicly and saying, we need to know more. We need to look at this theory. We need to look more closely at all of the theories, because at the end of the day, it's very difficult to prevent the next pandemic, whatever it is, if you don't know how this one started.
Very true. Let's pivot over to another topic. GOP senators earlier provided their latest counter-proposal for the president's infrastructure plan, offering a nearly $1 trillion proposal. How likely is it to satisfy the White House? It's significantly less than the White House's latest slimmed-down proposal. How concerned is the White House about letting negotiations stretch past their Memorial Day deadline?
It is just another step in the process. We haven't gotten an official reaction from White House officials. They're still going through this counterproposal. I've been going through it myself. Here are some of the top lines. The original Republican proposal was $568 billion over 5 years. It was about a quarter of the size of the White House proposal. The new proposal goes up to $928 billion, but over 8 years. You know, they go up, they increase their spending amounts from their original proposal on things like roads and bridges and water infrastructure and airports and broadband and rail. So that's certainly a sign of progress. But what Democrats argue that you really need to look at is how much new spending do Republicans want to do here? Because what they're saying in this new proposal is that you can get the lion's share of the money from unspent funds from previous COVID bills, money that has been authorized but hasn't been tapped yet. And they only want to do about $250 billion in new spending. That's not much of a change from their original proposal. Meanwhile, the White House is talking about $1.7 trillion in new spending to be paid for, as you know, by a hike in the corporate tax rate. So when you compare those two numbers, 1.7 trillion and 250 billion, they are still a ways apart. Now, a short time ago, the Republican leader in the Senate, Mitch McConnell, said in a cable news interview that they are willing to go further than where they are right now. I'm sure the White House is interested in continuing to talk. They are very interested in continuing these negotiations, trying to find some kind of bipartisan solution if they can. But I think there's no question that this is not going to be wrapped up by anywhere near Memorial Day, and they're going to have to continue to talk through the summer.
Yeah, I can see, you know, perhaps wiggle room on a lot of things, but those senators seem pretty firm about not raising taxes.
Right.
I'm sure there's all kinds of money that's kind of been left on the table, and somebody actually asked, you know, for an example, and I think one senator talked about 3 states that are rejecting the enhanced unemployment, and so that money can be repurposed, but that's not going to come anywhere close to the price tag on this bill. So I'm curious if there's that much money out there.
You know, and that is such a good point, because frankly, you know, the two sides could get to a number that they want to spend, 1.4 trillion, let's say, just throwing out a number. Let's say that Republicans in the White House completely agreed on a price tag and on what they wanted to spend all that money on. But if they can't agree on how to raise that money, if they stay entrenched in their positions when it comes to how, you know, whether it should be paid for and how it should be paid for and whether to increase the corporate tax rate or not, all of this could still fall apart. So it is not enough just to come to some agreement on how much to spend, and they're still quite far apart on that dollar figure. But you also have to come to agreement on where you get the money, and on that, they are just as far apart as ever.
So true. Nancy Cordes, thank you so much.
You're welcome.